once again to bring you guys the last quarterfinal to determine who is going to be joining us for day number 2 and keeping their dreams alive for BlizzCon later this year between Abar and Tarei. Kibler, it's been a joy so far. That last series was pretty exciting to watch down the wire.
Yeah, that was fantastic. There were so many epic moments in that series, and seeing Roof Twellen, who was my pick to win the event, take down Freeze Mage 4 games in a row, basically to advance. That was great.
Yeah, that's right. Your pick is going strong so far, and I believe the TJ is also going for it as well. We're going to kick things off with Mage versus Warlock. We're not going to skip a beat. He was able to get the better of Tarei last time, and he's hoping to be able to do it again.
Yeah, and Abar is playing a little bit of an unusual version of Tempo Mage. We see one of those cards that is unusual in his hand. He did mulligan it, Forbidden Flame. Not really a common inclusion in most of these lists. But he does have a strong hand overall with the turn 1 Mana Worm. No copies of any removal spells to follow it up. And it's pretty weak against that turn 1 Flame Imp.
Yeah, it's interesting because, a lot of times the mage wants to play something on turn 1, but there also are times where playing the Mana Worm is not exactly always the right play on turn 1 too if it gets eaten up so easily, not just by things like Flame Imp, but also cards like Fiery War Axe cause you to reevaluate. So sometimes you see some mage players hold on to that card for a while.
And it will be a coin into a Cult Sorcerer for Abar here, and Tarei is not letting up the pressure, finding several options off of this Dark Peddler. Another Flame Imp could help increase his board presence. Mortal Coil not at its best in this matchup. Most of the minions for the Tempo Mage have more than 1 health, so it does pick up that Flame Imp. And now Abar, he finds another Mana Worm. And still no spells, though, so those Mana Worms are a little bit awkward.
Yeah, Abar's list is very interesting. I actually got a chance to sit down with Tarei and talk to him about what Abar's list was like. And I think Tarei just felt pretty confident overall, not just because of the lineup, but he also knows that Abar's relatively new to just competition in general. Abar's been playing Hearthstone for less than a year, and he's been competing for even less amount of that, just a few months. And as such, Abar's he's still young, innocent, and naive, right? He still thinks very optimistically about something. He hasn't been beaten into a pulp by the fact that a lot of players are really brutal in some of these competitions.
Well, speaking of beaten into a pulp, Tarei has dealt 9 damage to himself so far with 3 Flame Imps. And now Abar is really going to need a spell to activate these Mana Worms. There's a Mirror Image that will pump the Mana Worms and give him a little bit of defense on the board, can help him get some trades in. So definitely a nice draw here, but it does activate Tarei's Sea Giant potentially.
Yeah, the Sea Giant, the infamous Sea Giant, which Tarei did end up bobbling last time, but didn't end up costing the game. Just to finish up my previous point, the deck construction from Abar is actually very interesting. He has 2 Forgotten Torches and a Kabbalist Tome, but he doesn't have a lot of those card draw sources that really make Forgotten Torch a real threat, because what ends up happening is the Tempo Mage sometimes transitions from being very early game board centric to extremely burn oriented, and they try to finish the game through Roaring Torch combinations. But that's why players like Hotform for a while were putting in Acolytes of Pain, because they just really felt like they needed to get to that. But Abar chose not to, instead putting things like Forbidden Flame. So this is what Tarei was talking to me about, and why he felt really confident in this matchup specifically.
Yeah. Well, the Sea Giant is a big factor in this matchup. 8-8 down on turn 4 for Tarei is giving him a threat that is going to be very difficult for Abar to deal with, especially considering the newer player does not really have many spells in his hand. Arcane Intellects finds some more, but at best he can trade his board for those Flame Imps and still be facing a Giant.
Yeah, this is the power of having that early game board as the Zoo player. Tarei's, of course, running the older school Zoo. Nothing really too new. Malkazar's Imp, things like the Silverware Golem, they're not in this deck. They're just classic Zoo, which still proves to be very powerful.
Yeah, the Sea Giants, he said that he likes this particular build because of them. They allow the deck to have very powerful game-swinging plays against other aggressive decks. As we saw right here, that Sea Giant is really defining the pace of this game because it's very difficult for Abar to remove with all of his damage-based removal.
Well, he doesn't exactly have the cleanest removal either. Forbidden Flame, very awkward to use. How does he pair it together with the rest of his hand? He can use Forbidden Flame to deal 2 damage. He can freeze the Giant to stall for more turns. He has to hope that this Frostbolt spray damage from the Flamewaker's effect doesn't hit the Imp.
Oh, there's another Giant!
Yeah.
And this is a really rough spot for Abar here. A second Giant comes down. The first one already really difficult for him to deal with. And now Tarei has the opportunity to just trade with this Flamewaker, leaving himself with the only minions on the board.
16, 19 power on board, so that's just, like, it kind of represents lethal just now. And Abar, you know, sowing the unfortunate seeds of what his deck list has brought him. You know, the Forbidden Flames are awkward, especially when you draw them in tandem. And now he's going to have to hope that he's not going to die.
Yeah, the Flames would have been pretty good for Abar if he'd found them earlier in the game and able to perhaps eliminate some of the Flame Imps before they really dealt just so much damage to him. But his Mana Worms just remained stranded in his hand because he just didn't have access to those spells in the early turns of the game. Tarei just pushing his advantage here. Power Overwhelming will allow an Imp to take down the Flamewaker, and so much damage pushed to Abar's face. He's got Yogg, but this is not a Druid deck. He cannot ramp into that before turn 10, and it looks like there's just not going to be a way out of this.
Yeah, the Thalnos can allow him to hero power to draw a card, but there's not really many cards that could save him, and just like that, game number 1 goes in favor of Tarei, so he jumps out to a very early lead. And, you know, maybe that's a good precedent already because, you know, even despite the fact that the deck building was interesting from Abar, the match was really tough for the Mage in general.
Certainly. Yeah.
I'm not sure if Abar was completely aware of what it meant when he says to the game community that he wants to be a Bastion.
Have you seen the Overwatch short, The Last Bastion?
I have.
I have never been so sad for a robot before.
Actually,
that's not true.
Same.
I watched
before
Wally.
And after.
Wally too. Wally was great as well.
Was great.
But Bastion made me feel Wally level feels, and I've never, you know, for a video game.
Are you a Bastion, Kibler?
I would consider myself more of a...
You're a 76. I'm not as young as I once was.
No, I'm actually a Winston. I play Winston and Roadhog, actually.
Yeah.
But
Admirable Stjorborn, obviously. And,
of course.
I'm Zarya. So
right.
we got all our roles set here. Abar versus Tarei going to game number 2. We have Shaman versus Druid. Abar off to a good start getting that Wild Growth. I have been hearing some players theorize about throwing away Wild Growth. I know it sounds stupid, but they say that Shaman starts off so fast that you're just looking for Innervate. You're like, you need to find Innervate that fast.
Why not both?
Okay, or why not
There you go. Or why not everything?
Sure. Maybe if you pick up some other ways to combine with Violet Teacher, Power of the Wild, it'd be really good.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a weird hand from Abar here. The double Innervate Violet Teacher is actually what it looks like he's going for, and he decides, I'm just going to get things going right away.
Wow.
The power of the Violet Teacher opening like this, I think, has been somewhat lessened against Shaman in particular, thanks to the release of Maelstrom Portal and Spirit Claws. We actually see Tarei has both of those. Mm-hmm. So the possibility that he can just deal with pretty much all of the resources Abar has had this entire game with just a couple of cards from his own hand is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, Abar is essentially all in on this Teacher, which does, again, make me a little worried for him. Having the 2 Innervates would normally lead to a lot of powerful swing turns consecutively, but right now he's got Wild Growth and he's got Hero Power, and those 2 options he's weighing through his mind right now.
Yeah, now, I mean, this is a little bit of an awkward spot because he obviously wants to Wild Growth and get the Totem Golem here, which can potentially just kill his Teacher as well. He is just going to go with the Wild Growth, and now there's a Tunnel Trug picked up from Tarei. Now, he can't get the Violet Teacher off the board just yet, but he can set up Spirit Claws, potentially kill the 1/1. And he has actually a few options here. He could choose to just go face with his Golem, because he puts his opponent in a position where attacking into the Totem Golem is at least a little bit awkward. Because he has access to the Portal next turn, or the Blood Mage along with the Spirit Claws, which can allow him to just attack into the Violet Teacher as well.
I guess you would be afraid of what your opponent can do on turn 4. But you know that your opponent hasn't planned for it, that he's drawn everything from the top of his deck.
Right.
So it is something to consider as well. Chooses Spirit Claws.
Yeah, I think there's got to be at least some thought of attacking into the teacher here for fear of swipe, because if you lose your Totem Golem without getting any damage there, or perhaps this Mulch now.
Yeah.
And Tarei not attacking into the Violet Teacher means that there's no damage on that Violet Teacher, so it kind of has free reign here.
Yeah, it doesn't feel the greatest to mulch a 2-mana minion, but, well, on average, the results aren't amazing. In this case, the game actually might go long enough that Sagoth is relevant.
Yeah, and that Rock Biter is a great draw from Tarei, because that gives him the ability with the spell power from the Blood Mage to just take down that Violet Teacher. And now Abar is down to just a single card in his hand. And thankfully for him, it is Azure Drake, so it will replace itself and give him a little bit more gas.
Right. Not a bad draw either. Violet Teacher helps him make a lot of other cards really powerful. Wrath can cycle and create a minion. Power of the Wild is great. Living Roots is not bad either. Now, by the way, Tarei is playing the mid-range Shaman variant. You can see that by the Thunderbluff Valiant. And that's a deck that's been growing a lot in popularity. People say that it might even be the strongest version of Shaman right now in Ladder.
Yeah, the introduction of both Maelstrom Portal and Spirit Claws has given the mid-range Shaman deck so many tools to deal with the early game. Claws in particular, allowing you to leverage the value of Blood Mage Thalnos, which we just saw last turn, as well as Azure Drake, to power that up and give you more tempo early in the game.
I don't know about you. They never need either. Apparently, they get Spell Power Totem every time they need it.
Well, Tarei didn't just now, so...
Yeah, he didn't need it.
He didn't, that's true. Well, actually, if he got Spell Power Totem, he could Maelstrom Portal attack and just kill his opponent's Sky.
You're right.
Would have been pretty good.
So he did need it, huh? I didn't know it worked that way. I guess the funny thing, too, is based off his hand, I mean, Tarei can also play the very slow game. How does Drew deal with Sagoth the Solithor?
It is not easy. I mean, with how many resources Abar has already invested, I mean, even just that Thunderbluff Valiant is potentially scary pretty soon.
Man, that is not bad at all for Abar, because now he can load onto the board and then refill his hand with Nourish if his opponent deals with this board, which you sort of anticipate your opponent doing. He did hold a lot of cards. His best turn 4 play was a Flame Tongue Totem, so you're feeling like he's got some heavier cards that maybe he uses to swing the board.
Yeah, there's a couple of options here. There's the Violet Teacher into Living Roots, which you can use to kill the Flame Tongue Totem and then clear your opponent's other totem, which does develop a bit of a board. He could just Nourish plus Living Roots to try and build to a stronger turn later on. That ends up being somewhat problematic given the fact that he's already used 2 Innervates. So loading up your hand with more spells when you know you're going to be somewhat lacking in terms of the overall mana to actually play them is probably worse than just playing to the board here, which is what he's going to go ahead and do. So he's going to go ahead and Living Roots. Can choose either target, doesn't really matter which one he kills in terms of getting any damage on either of his minions. And there so Abar now has a pretty solid board. Tarei with a lot of cards in hand, but not enough mana to really make a big play.
Yeah, you can't guarantee a clear because Lightning Storm, if it rolls the highest, I guess, the 3 damage, if it gets 3 damage on all of the Lightning Spikes, then Maelstrom Portal can clear it, but it's not guaranteed. It's hard to make sure that you can get to that position. If you roll Spell Power Totem and he gets 4 on everything, then that's also a possibility.
Well, Spell Power plus Storm, if he just gets 4 on the Drake, would be great, because he would have the damage left over from Spirit Claws to take down. And there it is, Spell Power.
Oh, man. There it is.
All right.
Okay, so now his Lightning Storm just feels like the most important play here, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to totem here, I imagine it's in anticipation of playing that Lightning Storm. We'll see how much damage it does to that Azure Drake.
Okay.
Does not take out the Drake, so he is able to clear off the Violet Teacher and the Student, but the Drake lives with just 1 health. That is enough that he can kill it next turn with Maelstrom Portal.
Right.
So that's pretty crucial.
Yeah, but he has to commit his mana to that, though.
It's true. He won't be able to develop too much of his own board next turn because of that. And Abar able to reload with Nourish here. Finds some pretty good action with Ragnaros to be able to play next turn.
Your opponent just played Lightning Storm. I guess you want to start thinking about ways to be aggressive. Even though Blood Mage Thalnos is a card draw and ultimately your hand's a little bit low, I do think pushing the tempo a little bit is really important against your opponent. And now, let's see what Tarei's options here is just not very strong or impressive.
Yeah, a little bit awkward for Tarei here. He can play either Thing from Below or 2 Tunnel Trogs and follow it up with Maelstrom Portal to kill the Azure Drake. He could just use his hero power, hope for spell power once again to clear the board with the Maelstrom Portal. But those Tunnel Trogs in particular are looking quite weak. Just he has no overload to back them up, and his opponent is ahead in the board with minions that can kill his Tunnel Trogs.
I mean, there is a possibility that Maelstrom Portal also gets a Stone Chessboard to clear the board.
Factual.
It's happened before in my games. So I don't really hate the Maelstrom Portal. I don't like leaving the Azure Drake up because it feels like you can get blown out way too easily by a swipe.
Yeah, he will go ahead and use the portal, finds himself. All right, a Buccaneer.
I should have combined with Doomhammer. Oh man, because the Buccaneer adds 1 extra attack to the weapon that you equip, and that would have made Doomhammer a 3/8. Now Abar, he did originally have that Ragnaros plan. Has he chosen to pivot? I'm not sure. Ragnaros still seems like a really strong option.
Ragnaros is a little bit weak overall against Shaman just because of their hero power, and Hex gives them both minions that can absorb the fireballs as well as the ability to kind of get a big tempo swing. You spend your entire turn on it. That said, Abar doesn't really have that much else to do otherwise. He doesn't have great options that'll really deal with this board. So he is just going to go ahead and play Azure Drake, going to try and find some better option here. Finds Onyxia.
Okay.
That's got to look attractive when your opponent has played Maelstrom Portal and Lightning Storm already, and you're going to have 9 mana next turn.
Right. Okay, well, looks like Tarei's got that turn 7 Thunderbluff Valiant play, but is there a better option here?
It looks like the Thunderbluff Valiant plus hero power, and he can attack into the Azure Drake and the either the Panther or the Blood Mage Thalnos. Gives him a bit of a board and really threatens to force Abar to remove the Thunderbluff the next turn. It even puts Abar in kind of an awkward position if he were to just want to play Onyxia. Then he's facing down the threat of, okay, well, if you do have an AoE, there's just this unanswered Thunderbluff Valiant, and if that minion remains in play for more than a couple turns, it can be very difficult to come back.
Yeah, the really big downside is that unless he gets the healing totem, that Thing from Below gets challenged just by the Blood Mage Thalnos. And then I don't know if you're feeling too bad about playing Onyxia right after you trade for this 5/1.
I mean, I think that it definitely looks like a great spot for it, considering your opponent has utilized quite a bit of their AoE. None of your other options are particularly attractive. The fact that he drew Raven Idol is going to complicate things a little bit. He may think, okay, well, can I Raven Idol and find something that can remove this Valiant? But
okay,
I imagine now that that's attacked, he's just going to go ahead and play Onyxia.
Sure. And, you know, of course, Tarei knew that this was a possibility. And now Flame Tongue Totem plus the hero power. What's his board situation looking like? 4, 7. No, it's not a clean removal. It's awkward.
Well, he does have the Rock Biter as well. So he can invest that and take out Onyxia with his totem. But that's still, you know, obviously not what he'd love to do, considering his opponent has enough minions left over just to remove the Thunderbluff Valiant after that.
Yeah, and what he can do is try and hope that Saga the Slitherer just really grinds his opponent down in resources. But we know that there's a lot of gas that's available to Abar, and that's one of the flexible things about Raven Idol. You can use it for, in this position, looking for spells to draw cards or remove. Or even in instances where you don't have any more minions, you can use Raven Idol to just pick up a random minion.
I mean, Abar with 2 Raven Idols in his hand has just so many options that he can find next turn that would be absolutely devastating here. If he finds Savage Roar, if he finds Wisp of the Old Gods,
that's another one.
So many cards that can really, oh, well, that's also pretty powerful. But we're going to start with Raven Idol, I have to imagine.
Yep.
What is in the box?
Looking for anything to bolster his board. Power of the Wild, like you said. Starfall.
Starfall is interesting. It clears, it only by itself clears 1 minion.
But it sets up with Swipe really well,
yeah,
too.
Starfall into Swipe can actually kill everything on Tarei's board, and this is going to be a devastating turn.
Yeah, it's almost as good as it gets in terms of clearing the board. Didn't get to swipe the face, I guess is the only complaint.
Curses.
Yeah. And he also has Ragnaros to push damage, too, so... You know, Tarei's going to really need a lot of work done here by Saga the Slither, and he is a big dude.
Dun, 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 dun. I think that's what that sound effect is.
Nailed it.
Yeah. They just have me do all the sound effects. They don't need like a whole orchestra or whatever.
I'd buy that expansion. With gold, though.
Oh, okay.
I saved up a lot in my defense. Raven Idol looking for some way to
Savage is just lethal here. He doesn't even need to go for Ragnarok. Savage plus Druid of the Claw, I believe, just ends the game on the spot.
Yeah. Worth counting just to remind yourself how many whelps there are, but with, what, 12 damage guaranteed with the Savage Roar plus whatever's on board here, that's going to be more than enough. And, you know, Tarei got a really good mulch result, but didn't really matter. And, hey, that double Innervate Teacher play ended up being able to work out for Abar.
Yeah, Abar was able to follow it up with some good removal, as well as, crucially, that Nourish that found him more threats and was able to turn the tables on Tarei's mid-range Shaman.
So the series is evened up. The mid-range Shaman does falter here. So checking in with anybody who's tuned in a little bit late, we had the Zoo Warlock up against the Tempo Mage, and the Zoo Warlock was able to prevail. And then we just recently saw Abar's Druid get an explosive start and take out the Shaman.
All right, well, it will be Abar playing the Zoo deck this time against Tarei playing mid-range Shaman. And this is a matchup that I've heard a lot of players say has changed dramatically with the release of Karazhan. The combination of the Claws as well as Maelstrom Portal, Spirit Claws and Maelstrom Portal, give you both the ability to fight for the early board and the ability to clear off large boards that really didn't exist before in sufficient quantities in Shaman.
Yeah, there was this belief that the mid-range Shaman was a lot weaker to the Zoo Warlock compared to prior to Karazhan and then compared to after. And I tend to agree. I think the Maelstrom Portal is really impactful. Spirit Claws helps you stabilize the early game board. And that's all the Shaman cares about, because the quality of their minions with Thunderbluff Valiant, as you saw Alec here, the Windlord, Flame Wreath Faces, are much higher on average than the usual Zoo Warlock draw. Now, keep in mind, Abar is playing the same list that we saw Hot Meowth play as well previously.
Yeah, the Demon Fire list, which is really made possible primarily by Malchezaar's Imp. A lot of players look at Malchezaar's Imp and think, oh, I want to play this alongside a lot of discard effects like Darkshire Librarian, the Silver Golem, but it also happens to be a one-cost demon, and that is the use that Abar and Hot Meowth have used so far. And we see a demon come down and then coin Soulfire, getting rid of the second Soulfire from Abar's hand. You see a little bit of shake of the head from Abar here, likely fearing the possibility he no longer has removal for Totem Golem, but there is no Totem Golem for Tarei.
Yeah, instead, Abar now has free reign to develop onto the board here however he chooses. It seems like Argent Squire and Voidwalker opens up his paths a lot more. Normally, you want to try and fill the curve with higher cost minions because ones are always easier to fit than twos. But in this instance, because Lance Carrier is not necessarily strong in this position where you're kind of loading it all on this Flame Imp, I do think that if you add Lance Carrier's buff to a Divine Shield minion, actually is a lot stronger.
Yeah, that's generally where it's at its best. I had a chance to talk to Hot Meowth a little bit about this particular style of Warlock deck, and he said that he was, a little bit shaky in terms of whether or not it was better than more traditional decks, and we saw him have a little bit of shaky performance with it earlier today as he narrowly got past Monsanto with the deck. But a big part of the power of the deck is the combination of the Lance Carrier buff with those Divine Shield minions.
It's a pretty good point there. Now, one thing to also keep in mind as Tarei plays the Totem Golem, just his best minion, is that Abar, he's playing a list that is very similar, but once again doesn't have a lot of that big board control compared to Tarei's Zoo Warlock deck. So what's interesting is always what happens if Abar loses and they match up against each other. Because when Tarei brings like his Zoo Warlock with a bunch of Sea Giants, he's anticipating a lot of people to bring these board flood opportunities and get cheap Giants. So I haven't really seen that Zoo Warlock clash too much with other styles. I want to see how it works.
Yeah. But Abar within a kind of an awkward spot here. No great opportunities to make good trades here. He could use his Lance Carrier on his Flame Imp to trade into this Totem Golem, but that leaves him with very little power left in the board. He is just going to go ahead and trade in and Lance Carrier up the Voidwalker. So he's going to go ahead and sort of diversify his threats here a little bit and ensure that he has some substance left in the board. Tarei does have, there's another Totem Golem of his own. he has that Lightning Storm, which has the potential to be very strong, but he really needs spell power because 2 of Abar's threats here, and including the biggest one on the board, are only a 50% shot to kill with that Lightning Storm.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I don't think it's worth risking right now on a Lightning Storm, which doesn't, on average, is not going to clear everything. So if you play Totem Golem, then you're going to be stuck with 4 mana next turn. That's also another awkward moment as well, because nothing really pairs well with that. If you get Maelstrom Portal with Spell Power Totem, it still is not very guaranteed to clear anything. So I definitely feel like Tarei's in an awkward spot where he constantly has to waste mana crystals here and there. Those add up over time.
Absolutely. The efficiency of your mana usage in all of these tempo-based matchups can be crucial. And Tarei, he just recognizes that none of his plays work out well and is hoping, all right, he does get the clear on the biggest of the two larger minions there. And life tap for Abar. He can reload on this Imp. Oh, okay. He's got a couple of options. Can choose to either Lance Carrot or Demon Fire. He's going to go with the Demon Fire, which does protect his minion from a Maelstrom Portal, which is quite important.
Yes, certainly. And that means that pretty much Tarei's plays can get threatened in almost any capacity. Once again, if he wants to play Feral Spirits, he's going to be overloaded for 2, so he's stuck with 4 mana. But if one of the spirits survives, then Flametongue Totem and Totem Golem, Maelstrom Portal piece a lot easier. So while this turn, you don't necessarily get the full benefits of filling out some of these support cards, next turn you can.
And Tarei kind of debating looks between the Totem Golem and the Feral Spirit here. One of the awkward things about the Feral Spirit is, you know, he just gets one of them eaten by Abar's Imp immediately.
It's true.
So he basically will have to follow up with Maelstrom Portal, or else he essentially loses his entire Feral Spirit, which is a lot of mana over the 2 turns, to this Imp. Brand Bondsbeard for Abar, which is great with Lance Carrier, but not necessarily when your opponent can easily eat the thing that you are pumping.
That seems to work out pretty well if Abar chooses to just play those 2 minions in tandem, because Tarei has the Flametongue Totem and the Maelstrom Portal, which should clear everything except for the Lance Carrier.
And I imagine we may see Abar go with exactly the Bran into Carrier, pumping the Bran itself, giving him a 6/4. Build your own Volcanic Drake right here.
Yeah, not bad. And, I mean, that at least forces your opponent, if he has to play Spirit Claws, has to take a lot of damage. Or, assuming that Tarei had it, but he doesn't.
And I think Tarei is very likely going to be priced into Flametongue plus Portal here to clear everything but that Lance Carrier, as you mentioned. It does leave him with no overload next turn, going into 7 mana with Thunderbluff Valiant in his hand, which is a very powerful potential swing turn, allowing him to just really start bolstering his board from nothing.
You know, it's interesting that we perceive Doomhammer as being one of these insanely powerful cards in Shaman, maybe one of the best, if not the best. And yet, we see some of these mid-range Shamans cutting the Doomhammer from their lists.
Well, many mid-range Shaman players haven't included Doomhammer, or have included one Doomhammer for quite a while, but in particular, the style of the mid-range Shaman decks typically is that they want to win the game via attrition and powerful cards like the Thunderbluff Valiant that allow them to just establish this board, which is very difficult for their opponent to deal with. Doomhammer can give them some burst potential, but you get that from Alakir, you can get that from Bloodlust is another card, and the Doomhammer competes with Spirit Claws, which is so powerful controlling the early turns of the game. Well, Tarei goes with the plan of Flametongue plus the Maelstrom Portal, and Abar is reduced to just that Lance Carrier, who fortunately can kill the Brave Archer that came out of the portal.
Yeah, not really threatening board from the Shaman yet, but if he even leaves up that Flametongue Totem, that totem can start fighting on its own. Ooh, interesting. Coil is pretty good draw, or pretty good opportunity, because you can draw with it, and then now you can snipe the Flametongue.
This is a great sequence of draws and discovers from Abar here. Gets to take out the entire board, making the potential threat of that Thunderbluff Valiant much lower, and forcing Tarei on the back foot once again.
Alakir the Windlord is pretty nasty if you can have a big board to support him.
It's also just pretty decent at removing a board kind of like the one Abar has right now.
That's true.
If Abar is able to set up just a couple of minions, and this draw right here we've seen, We've seen this a number of spots with the Demon Fire drawn with no demons to buff. It's also worth noting this can be used as a removal effect. So if Abar wants to just throw a couple of minions into the Thunderbluff Valiant, he can get 2 damage off the Demon Fire to finish that off.
It doesn't seem like there's a convenient pairing with Defender of Argus and Demon Fire to cleanly remove the board without tossing almost his entire board away.
I would expect that we see Abar using Life Tap this turn. He's a little bit low on resources, and like you mentioned, there's no great opportunity for him to use both of the spells in his hand right now. He can go ahead and attack 2 minions into the Thunderbluff, use Demon Fire, so I would expect to see him dig a little bit to try to fight back in the resource axis of this game.
Yeah, I wonder if another possibility is he starts getting aggressive. Perhaps Defender start just attacking as opposed to trading all the time.
All right, he's actually this is okay. Yeah, he's able to retain some of his board, remove everything on the opposing side, get a decent trade here.
Sure.
This does open the possibility of just this Alakir clearing off both these minions if Tarei wants to do that, and then the threat of pushing for a lot of damage the following turn with Flame Tongue plus Rockbiter.
If he plays Alakir, what is Abar's best response to it? He doesn't really have much in his deck.
He's already
Doom Guards.
He's already discarded one of his Soulfires to the other, so in terms of the removal effects he has that can immediately deal with it, it's very, very limited. I believe his only way to take it off the board immediately is either a buffed Argent Horse Rider or a Doom Guard, as you mentioned. And that is an Argent Horse Rider, but no buff. And this damage is going to bring Abar down to 16, and I believe that's just short of lethal from the Windlord right here. Rockbutter plus Flame Tongue buffs it up to 8, so Tarei could attack for 16, and I actually would not be surprised if he did just that, to force Abar to a position where he can no longer use his hero power to life tap.
Yep, play pretty much your entire hand. Because if you set your opponent down to 2 health or less, they really can't do much. They can't life tap at that point. They have to win with their next card. And even if they do clear the board, they only draw 1 card for the rest of the game.
And that is exactly what Tarei does, bringing Abar down to just 2 life. And there really is no draw that Abar can have, and he recognizes that and just concedes on the spot.
There you go, Alakir the Windlord. People who open it up in the welcome bundle, that's where you can stick him in. People are always wondering, like, is he as useful as some of the other ones? Absolutely, in some cases.
Swat your opponents like insects.
There you go, there you go. Go into game number 4. He's going to need all the bravery he can get. We're going to go into Hunter versus the Zoo Warlock. This is the deck that you were pointing out right before during the break, is that Tarei didn't win with this deck last time they played. Yeah,
Tarei played a very bizarre version of Hunter in the preliminary. He played a very sort of anti-aggro list with Dread Scale and a double explosive trap. He's moved away from that toward a more sort of traditional style of mid-range Hunter right now. He's a couple of sort of tricks up his sleeve with Cloaked Huntress and Freezing Trap, but not the huge secret package you see in some versions of Hunter these days.
Yeah, I think Hunter is also in a very interesting spot, too, because, you know, I do believe that if we were given an extra couple weeks, maybe we could find the more refined versions of the Secret Hunter, for example, or maybe the discard Warlock finally starts getting some legs. We are in an interesting spot where, like, you know, just a week or 2 weeks ago, the final wing of Kirzan was released, so people are still testing lists. And Abar even says to himself that if he was given some more time, he probably actually would play the discard Warlock. He just didn't know the right 30 cards, and he just wanted to bring the best deck he could.
All right, well, Tarei starts with Coin into Kindly Grandmother, one of the major features from Karazhan in this deck. Definitely very potent in this matchup because it gives him the ability to trade into Abar's minions, particularly that Abusive Sergeant, since Abar does not have a Voidwalker to protect it.
Yeah, and now it's, you know, the Hunter's in a spot where it's pretty comfortable. I like this as opposed to the Fiery Bat. It makes a lot more sense. Well, I guess there's not really much to do. You just have to play the best possible turn 2 and not really give your opponent the value trade that he's looking for.
And I imagine we will see, this Kindly Grandmother trade into one of these, and then Juggler or Bat could come down. He's going to go ahead with the Juggler. Juggler is a card that used to be just omnipresent in these Hunter decks. Ooh, wow, that was a sick juggle. Protecting the Juggler and the I actually don't know what that is. That's a big bad wolf, right? That's it comes out the other side. The kindly grandmother into the big bad wolf.
Yeah.
That was a huge swing there, taking out the abusive sergeant, leaving Abar with no ability to fight back on this board right now. So Tarei with a big edge, and there's an unleash that's obviously combos quite powerfully with Knife Juggler, though I imagine that Tarei may wait to take this to a little bit of a later stage of the game.
That one stung, Gilbert. You can't see it.
Oh, it was.
That
brutal.
didn't hit the abusive sergeant. It hit right there. I'm pointing at his heart.
Abar right in the chest.
If you watch it slowly, you can see the moment when his heart breaks. Click, click, click. Well, you know,
it will be the unleash here. He's going to go ahead and throw off some knives.
Oh, not to the face. It was a wand.
Yeah, and does allow Tarei to clear things off here and continue pushing some damage. And he still has, a very powerful hand, and Abar is behind in the board, and this is where Zoo can really struggle. It does not perform typically very well when it falls behind in the board.
Yeah, and especially in this matchup, too, where everything is about that early game board, because Hunter's got some insanely powerful late game against the Zoo Warlock, ranging from the high main to this Call the Wild spell.
Not only just powerful late game, but also the ability to put on a lot of pressure with that hero power and punish the Warlock for using its own hero power.
Yeah, definitely. And here is one of those new cards from Karazhan, the Cloaked Huntress. 3-mana, 3/4 minion that allows you to play spells for free. Which is interesting because there's only 2 secrets in the list of Tarei, but it still gives him some ability to swing tempo, which is really cool when it works.
Currently has a spider tank.
Currently he has a spider tank, which also wasn't the worst in mech decks.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and it is the bar of vanilla stats that we judge cards at its mana cost.
Imp Gang Boss, that's not a spider tank.
It's not a spider tank, but it's better than spider tank.
It is, in fact, in those cases, better than spider tank. All right, we'll see where this to the face. That could have gone a lot worse.
Could have gone a lot worse. You are right. Always the optimist, Kilber. I love it. Animal Companion, getting a Leok would be great.
Leok is, in fact, what he gets. This is an interesting situation for Tarei because he has 2 copies of Kill Command in his hand. Is he even going to bother attacking into this Imp Gang boss? He can just send damage to the face. He will take out the Imp Gang boss. Though this actually gives Abar an excellent opportunity to maximize use of this Direwolf Alpha. He can clear off both minions in the board.
Yeah, that ends up being very convenient because of the trades. And, something worth evaluating for sure. But I think Tarei's plan next turn was to play high main, so he felt like that's where he can leverage kill commands after he secured the board.
I just wanted the damage to the face.
I would love the damage to the face, too.
Attack my opponent down is so low, and I got 2 kill commands in my hand.
I definitely am more of a fan of hitting the face in that situation. Given that kill commands are 6 damage at the minimum, if you can maximize 10 plus the hero power, you already would be threatening lethal over 3 turns.
Missed face, Smork.
Well, Abar, he's got some awesome plays. I mean, Divine Shield Taunt is so annoying.
Yeah, this is actually, against a single large minion, the ability to create a board with a taunted Argent Horse Rider is quite powerful.
Yeah, in fact, it's so annoying that Blizzard literally made a card called Annoyatron to just show you guys how annoying those 2 mechanics are when they interact with each other on the same card. That is interesting placement. Okay, so he doesn't want that Direwolf Alpha to die.
Yeah, he wants to protect his Direwolf Alpha here and force Tarei to attack into just the Voidwalker or the Divine Shield minion. And now, I mean, this is kind of awkward for Tarei. He doesn't have the ability to get this high main through. He pretty much never will. He's just got to hope that he can whittle Tarei down with his hero power and actually get those kill commands to finish the game off. But Abar is threatening quite a bit of damage of his own.
Well, he does have...
He can actually... second Defender of Argus.
Here's the thing, though. Abar's going to life tap, and that's
actually just lethal, unfortunately,
unless
for
he clears
Abar.
every minion. Oh, every beast, excuse me.
Yeah, he could kill each beast, but he can't possibly be playing around to just kill command in the hand here.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I can just see him pushing with the damage and Soulfire and the 3/4, and then trying to make the end of the game at that point. What an interesting sequence of events.
Yeah,
We're just kind of lending to itself that way.
Kind of crazy here. So Tarei with just the burst to finish things off here. If Abar clears all of his beasts, then he has the glimmer of hope of surviving through the turn. But I can't imagine that that will happen.
Can he actually even do that? I don't think he has enough attacks.
There's one, he'd have to use the Soulfire and all of his attacks, right?
No, he wouldn't even be able to clear off all of the hyenas and the Kindly Grandmother and the Big Bad Wolf. There's too many minions. He needs 5 hits, and he only has 4.
But he has the Soulfire, too. Oh, wait, you're right, you're right. And I actually had no opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I miscounted slightly there, but Tarei did not miscount here, and kill command, and hero power to the face will give Tarei a 3-1 lead in this series.
Super quick and fast, and honestly a great win for the Hunter, which prior to Karazhan was struggling with Zoo, but perhaps has picked up more answers now. And Abar finds himself at elimination point. Tarei just needs one more game in order to punch himself a ticket to semifinals.
And I think the card that really defined that game is one of the unusual cards in Tarei's deck, which is really Knife Juggler. The Juggler Unleashed turn was just a huge, huge swing there that really put Abar on the back foot. He was just never able to recover.
And the turn before that as well, being able to snipe both of those abusive sergeants. Going to game number 5. Tarei is going to queue up this Druid, the Malygos Druid, one of my favorite decks currently in Hearthstone.
He just asked you to call him Tarei. Just moments ago.
He didn't say please.
It's true. He just threatened to call you Ferdan.
The problem is that it's so ingrained in my mind that I can call him Tarei, and then just
moments later
through, it's just going to start converting.
Oh,
again
I know. You actually just changed his name.
I did.
Against his will.
I have the power.
Of Grayskull or of Ragnaros? Which one is it?
Whichever one has the one to dictate nomenclature, apparently. Now, speaking of nomenclature, this Tempo Mage, and I put that in air quotes as well because these days it doesn't exactly play very tempo-oriented. It always seems to scale based off of whatever matchup it is. In this matchup, however, you tend to play very tempo-oriented. So this is one of the times where I approve of the name of the deck.
Yeah, Tarei is playing the Malygos Druid deck. He's looking to build up to those big turns with the ramp and card draw and power out things like Arcane Giant and eventually Yogg-Saron. But that deck needs time, and Tempo Mage is a deck that can cause that to be a very difficult proposition.
Yep, a little bit annoying, but it's totally manageable. Can shut down this pretty easily, and your opponent's still not playing that many spells, so I feel like tapping the Mana Worm, just lightly bumping it with the hero power, not going to be that much.
Boom, gone. And now Tarei is still at 29 health here. He doesn't really have plays for the next couple of turns, so if Abar can find himself a threat that he can stick to the board, Tarei is out of both his own threats and removal, but ooh, Abar just has the unfortunate Tempo Mage draw of lots of burn, which eventually might be good, but this is a matchup where that can be difficult to leverage. No, it's kind of both players, hero power and pass.
Yeah, I guess it's...
What are the priests?
It's... It hasn't gotten that bad because there's still damage being dealt.
It's true, it's true. The hero powers actually do something.
Let's pray that druids and mages will never know what
they didn't emote when they hero powered, so
that is a strict
they're not clearly priests.
Abar at least has something to do this turn. This is, one of the downsides of playing Forbidden Flame in your deck.
It's true.
It's a control card primarily, which is really interesting that Abar has chosen to put not 1 but 2 in his deck. Oh, big pickup here for Tarei.
That Wild Growth is really nice. It allows him to ramp into the possibility of Emperor next turn, which reduces... It's a little bit awkward because Emperor will reduce a fairly large hand, but reduces a bunch of expensive spells, which isn't nearly as valuable, generally speaking, as reducing low-cost spells, because you're reducing them by a lower percentage of their mana cost.
Yeah. Arcane Intellect... He has 2 Forbidden Flames in his hand. Okay, he finally has minions to play, so the Mana Worm can come out this turn. Finally getting some traction onto the board here.
Yeah, the turn 5 Mana Worm is not nearly as threatening. Oh my, that is an Innervate. That's quite strong.
Does he want to play the Gadget Stand versus the Emperor this turn?
I don't think he will. I don't think he wants to play Gadgets in here. I would consider either Emperor or just Starfiring the minion here, because your opponent has demonstrated that he doesn't really have much in the way of significant threats. So if you do play Emperor, you know your opponent's hand is just full of removal.
Right.
And if you play Starfire, you could potentially dig yourself to more spells, more ramp that you can use in combination with the Auctioneer and such to give you a bigger board. But Tarei does go with the Emperor, and now Abar picks up a Sorcerer's Apprentice, so he actually can have a pretty explosive turn right now.
Yeah, I actually like finding a way to get one of the Forbidden Flames out of the hand. The best way, I think, is to play Flamewaker and then coin the Forbidden Flame out. Instead, looks like Abar wants to utilize the very powerful combination of Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Flamewaker. Ooh, gets 2 shots on the Emperor.
So he could Forbidden Flame here, and if both shots hit the Emperor, it'll kill it. And even if he misses, he has the other Forbidden Flame that he can cast for 0 just to get Flamewaker triggers. So
that works too. If I knew that was going to be the outcome, I'd do that instantly. Now, Tarei's picked up Wrath. That interacts really interestingly with Arcane Giant. I'm wondering if there's a way for him to almost have it all, but I don't think he can.
If he casts Starfire plus Wrath plus Innervate, I don't think he can quite cast the Arcane Giant. I think he ends up being 1 mana short.
1 mana short?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
But if he draws a Moonfire...
he has to cycle the Starfire first.
It's true.
But if he picks up Moonfire, you're right. It would be pretty nasty.
There's Malygos. But yeah, he's just going to use this turn to remove as much of Abar's board as he can. And then he does have just the ability to potentially play Yogg-Saron next turn if he wants, but he hasn't actually played that many spells this game.
Yeah.
Both players have kind of done very little. We can see actually by the Arcane Giant cost, Tarei has played 7 total spells so far. Yeah. So not necessarily a super high impact Yogg.
Oh, Antonidas comes into hand. I kind of like playing Antonidas and converting a Forbidden Flame into a Fireball.
Cash it in.
Yeah, why not?
I definitely like that. He has quite a bit of burn in his hand already, and the Antonidas is a threat that your opponent is sort of committed to having to deal with, and you end up having, 21 points of burn left in your hand after this turn.
It's a lot. Not to mention that you're putting your opponent at 21. It works out okay.
Math adds up. So, I mean, I think that we're just going to see, Yogg-Saron this turn. I can't imagine Tarei leaving Antonidas up. Yeah, right. The classic hero power into Innervate. You know what's coming.
Abar shaking his head. He's just like, oh, just don't kill Antonidas. Not that many spells, though, like you mentioned.
Yeah, this is now an 8-spell Yogg-Saron. We have not seen Yogg-Saron be particularly powerful so far. It does sound, but the body alone is quite threatening here. Gonna get a slam there, but multi-shot, okay. He's able to take out the Sorcerer's Apprentice at least.
Looks like that's it. If
all right, yeah. So, and I believe Abar does not have the ability to actually. Oh, actually, the explosive trap on the board left Antonidas at just 2 health. So explosive trap will prevent the attack to the face. So Abar doesn't have the ability to. He actually didn't have the ability to kill Tarei this turn anyway. He can only cast 2 of the fireballs. So he can... I imagine he'll see... Oh, he's going to get explosive trapped. I was going to say that I would imagine we would see him just attack into the Yogg-Saron because he has the ability to just fireball this turn, leaving Tarei low enough that he can finish him off the next turn. But now that Moonglade Portal in Tarei's hand, because the Antonidas did die, may actually get this game kind of out of reach, except for Abar's own Yogg.
Yeah, the Hunter Trap is extremely hard to play around because there's so many ways that Hunter's secrets interact with people these days. So I don't blame Abar for attacking the face. It's, it's definitely unlikely that it is an explosive trap, which is the only instance that stops Antonidas' damage from being dealt.
All right, well, Tarei now at a relatively healthy 16 life. And he has Moonglade Portal to protect himself if he wants, but there's also just Malygos that can threaten to end the game with the burn spells in his hand.
I kind of still like playing Arcane Giant because Swipe is 9 damage and Arcane Giant is 8, so if you just put it out, it's still kind of... I guess Malygos also adds its damage too, but you get to play Moonglade Portal as well. I like that a little bit better.
Well, I imagine that Tarei will certainly start with Raven Idol to see what he can find here. And Wrath? Living Roots. Living Roots is really nice with the Malagos because it represents just burst next turn from Malagos. He doesn't even need to play it right now. Moonglade Portal will give him a bit of a buffer. Find Ivory Knight. Seems appropriate for the heal.
Yep. Like it, as if the Ivory Knight played the 6-mana heal.
All right, well, this is putting Abar down to 22. He has 12, 13, 14, 15 on board. So Abar does need to remove minions from the board, or that Living Roots with Malagos does represent lethal damage next turn.
Yeah, he's got the Arcane Intellect to draw. He can Fireball, remove, buy a little bit of time. Mirror Image, not necessarily a bad card if he wants to stall for time. It's a little bit awkward at piece, though, because of the 2/2 and the 1/1 surviving, potentially. I do think like you need to start playing spells because it's very clear you're losing control of the board here, and I'm in favor of playing spells to stall. I wouldn't even hate playing Fireball and Mirror Image just to continue to put as much spells into the Yogg.
Yeah, it does seem like you need a bit of help here. Moonfire, that I don't think he quite has it still. He has, what, 15?
21, right?
I think
no. I forget that you can't get past the 0/2.
Right,
easily.
yeah. So he can Malagos. Moonfire is 6, Living Roots is 7, so he has 13 from those, but he can't get past the mirror images. So those are keeping Abar in this game.
All right, just going to play the Gadge Sand Auctioneer. Swipe allows him to cleanly remove. Debate whether or not you use Living Roots. I mean, you still have 13 damage in the hands.
Living Root right now, or rather, Moonfire Living Roots right now is 8 damage as opposed to dealing +5, so it would be 7 versus 8. The first one, at least, is quite valuable. And now the Innervate is fantastic because it allows him to use his hero power to clear off the other one and push for even more damage and draw him a card with that Auctioneer. So
there you go.
This is a crucial spot for Abar. He must pray to Yogg-Saron. What fate does the God of Death have in mind?
It's golden. There's a start. Oh, he's returning the multi-shot favor.
All right,
Entoming. Clearing the board systematically.
Every single thing needs to go. There is the Malagos plus Living Room. All right, there's some armor.
Oh!
Astral Communion. No. Oh my, we have seen so many devastating Yogg-Sarons defeating their user.
Well, Fistatraxis, does he have opportunity to stop even the giant?
It's Tiny Finn. Poor Tiny Finn, don't let it die.
There it is.
It's so cute.
Get him, Tiny Finn. You can do it.
It's all on you now, Tiny Finn.
We're playing with real swords, right?
My magic.
You're our last best hope.
Well, that's going to wrap it up. Tarei has Living Roots and Malagos. We have ourselves our last quarterfinalist advancing through. Tarei is going to day number 2.
Thanks, Frodan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Tarei is going to day number 2. And Abar, with a very sportsmanlike conduct, hope to see him back next year as his hopes for a BlizzCon run has ended. And this concludes our first day's matches. We have semifinalists Dude, Hot Meowth, Rupchon, and Tarei. So don't go anywhere, guys. We have an interview with Tarei in just a couple of seconds here, followed by some analysis. Let's head over to Cora, who's ready with our...
Thank you, Dan. I'm joined by the 4th and final semifinalist moving on to tomorrow. It is, of course, Tarei. Now, Tarei, you are arguably the player here with the most, LAN experience, having competed in BlizzCon in 2014. What could this repeat performance, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot to me to possibly get another opportunity to compete at BlizzCon. I've always kind of not taken Hearthstone 2 professionally, and if I could do well and make it there, I feel like this time I could give it a better shot.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, and I look forward to seeing some more awesome gameplay out of you tomorrow.